So behind me is Greyfriars Church, and this is the church that the National Covenant was signed in. And I said before, the king was proclaiming himself to be the head of the church. And so when you said that Jesus was the head of the church and not the king, you were actually committing treason. And treason is something which is punishable by death. And so thousands of covenanters were then rounded up by the authorities, and they actually used this church where the covenant had been signed as a prison. And it was so full of covenanters that many of them suffocated when they were in here. Very, very few came out alive. Just a handful survived that were imprisoned here. So there were so many martyrs. Behind me, in the distance, there's a memorial to all of the covenanters who died. It's kind of covered up by scaffolding at the moment, but thousands and thousands of Christians kind of lost their lives in this period for their faith. And you know what Jesus says is, he says, if you acknowledge me before men, I will acknowledge you before the Father in heaven. But if you disown me before men, then you'll be disowned before the Father in heaven. And I showed you the house in Edinburgh with that inscription above the door. And as Christians were writing these things above the door, and they're writing their names down on the National Covenant, what they're really saying is, you know, I've just decided to follow Jesus. He's Lord. I'm going to acknowledge before men that Jesus is Lord. And that was a really costly decision for these people, because it cost them their lives. But do you know what? God will acknowledge them in heaven as they come in, and he'll say, you didn't disown me before people. I'm not going to disown you here. Come and have your place. Come and take your place in heaven, because you didn't love your life so much as to shrink from death. You know that when we come to Jesus, we're really saying, Jesus, you decide what happens in my life. For the apostles, most of them were martyred for their faith. Most of them, after a period of preaching the truth, they were put to death for their faith. And then there were others that seemed to escape for a long time. And the same in the period of the Covenanters. There are many Covenanters who had lots of miraculous escapes. There were some people who were on the way to a prayer meeting, and it was actually an offence to be going to these secret prayer meetings. And these people, they were apprehended by soldiers, and the soldiers were suspicious of them, and they said, where are you going? And you know, it says in the Bible that God will give us words to say when we're brought before authorities. And these believers, the words that came into their mouths were these, that a brother has died, his will is being read, and I'm going to claim my inheritance. And the soldiers let them pass. And really what they were saying really is, Jesus, my brother, has died. The Bible, his will is being read. And in that Bible are great promises that we can lay hold of as we pray. And when we pray, we're claiming that inheritance. We're claiming what Jesus died for. It says in Romans, if God did not spare his own son for us, but he gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? Yes, God asks us to be like Jesus. Just as Jesus was willing to lay down his life, we need to be willing to lay down ours. But as we go on that journey, God has promised to provide us with everything that we need. And as we pray, we should see that God is not a tight God. He is not a mean God who wants to withhold from us and to make us beg and, you know, grovel before him. He's a God who was willing to give his only son for us, that we may have everything that we need. The things that we really need most of all are forgiveness, because every day we're we're doing wrong things. We need courage, because if we want to be brave like these covenanters, naturally we're afraid and we want to run and hide. We want to preserve ourselves. We don't want to be in pain. We don't want to be hurt. We don't want to see our own blood flowing out of our bodies. And if we want to be able to stand for Jesus, then we need courage. And be praying for that now, because you don't know what season is ahead of you.